archived so you can view it afterwards. Normal stuff, remember, microphones on, speaking, microphones off when you've done. So before agenda item 1, we have apologies for absence, of which we have none. Minutes, agenda item 1, I move the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th September 2018 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. All happy?
Agree.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, urgent items. There aren't any. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Members who are also members of district councils just declare a personal interest, so put me down. And we'll take it as read that all other district members are going to declare. So we've got, first of all, I think Blake wants to declare something.
Thanks, Leader. In addition to the personal interest for being a dual hatter, I have another personal interest in item 10, the draft passenger transport policy and strategy. As you know, my family are connected with a local taxi business, and as such I declare a personal but non-pecuniary interest.
That's great. Rich?
Apart from the interest in being a district councillor, I also want to declare a pecuniary interest in item number 11 as an owner of property where the HS2 will be taking place.
Great, and you'll leave the room for that item, won't you, Rich? Okay, so agenda item 4, the development of a unitary structure for local government in Leicestershire. This is on pages 13 to 102. This first report responds to the Cabinet resolution of the 6th of July 2018, enabling the Cabinet to consider outline proposals for the development of a unitary structure for local government in Leicestershire, and in the light of that consideration, stakeholder engagement. This report also provides an update on the development of a strategic alliance for the East Midlands. Local government is facing a perfect storm with financial pressures, the national funding context and growing service demands, especially in children and adults. And it underlines that now is the time to consider change. I think this is something we can all agree on. Today's report clearly makes the case for change and assesses two different options. And as I've said, now we've had the opportunity to draw up tangible ideas. I'm keen to start a conversation with a wide range of stakeholders. I hope this involves the district councils putting forward options themselves. These could be considered by the new cross-party working group, which I will chair and will meet for the first time on Friday to agree its focus and approach. This is the start of the conversation. Over the autumn and the winter, and possibly the spring really, we'll be talking to MPs, district councils, business leaders, parish councils and other stakeholders to work together on drawing up a new unitary structure fit for the 21st century. Now, I think the Chief's going to speak to the report. John.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, this report stems from a decision of the Cabinet in July, and it takes as context the increasingly difficult and challenging financial situation facing local government and the opportunity to make local services more efficient and effective. It also takes account of the government's criteria for new unitary councils, which is shown from paragraph 106. The report does go into some detail from paragraph 19 on the financial situation and in the appendices on the service opportunities. Rising from that, the report, as you say, identifies two options for a unitary structure on which there could be engagement with stakeholders before any other action is taken. They are a single unitary council and two unitary councils. There is an initial assessment of the two options from paragraph 112. From paragraph 71, there is a section on how a model unitary structure might work in practice. At different levels of decision making, looking to strengthen member roles and working with town and parish councils. At the County Council meeting in September, it was agreed, as you say, that this report would include proposed terms of reference for the cross-party working group set up to consider the proposals. Such terms of reference are at paragraph 131. The Cabinet also requested an update on a proposed strategic alliance for the East Midlands. That is provided at paragraph 134. It's noted in paragraph 135 that at the Conservative Party conference, the Chancellor announced a development corporation based on the proposed HS2 hub at Towton. If, as seems probable and sensible, The territory of the Development Corporation includes the airport, the East Midlands Gateway, and the soon-to-be commissioned Ratcliffe Power Station. And if the Development Corporation is given powers around land assembly and planning, then it would seem to be sensible to take stock of that emerging situation before progressing a strategic alliance much further. The recommendations are on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Chief. I'll move the motion on the order paper and actually read it out so everybody knows what it is. So, A, that the outline proposals for the development of a unitary structure for local government in Leicestershire be approved for stakeholder engagement. B, that the proposed terms of reference of the working party established by the County Council on the 26th of September be approved. And C, that the present position in respect of the strategic alliance for the East Midlands be noted. I'll formally move those. Byron?
And I will just second the motion. I don't think I need to say any more. There's quite a lot of descriptive material already here, and of course we go over nearly 100 pages to read, so and a good deal more in the future, I think.
Yes, I think that's wise. I don't propose to say anything else. We've published it. We now want to hear from people. So, moved and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 5, Leicestershire and Rutland Living Well with Dementia Strategy, the years 2019 to 2022. You've got pages 103 to 110 and appendices pages 3 to 44. This report advises the Cabinet on the outcome of the consultation on the draft Leicestershire and Rutland Living Well Dementia Strategy for the years I mentioned, and seeks approval of the revised strategy and delivery plan. The population of Leicestershire is growing, particularly in the older age groups. Data also suggests that there are more than 9,000 people over 65 with dementia in the county, and this is predicted to rise. I think are you leading on this, John? Sandy's going to do it. So I'll take you first, Sandy, then I'll call Rich. Sandy?
Thank you, Chair. Ensuring that we support the healthcare and well-being of the growing numbers of people living with dementia is really one of the key challenges that we face. Cabinet agreed in March to public consultation on the draft Leicestershire and Rutland strategy, and that consultation took place between the 19th of April and the 22nd of June this year. A summary of the key points from the consultation is outlined in paragraph 25 of the report and detailed in an appendix that unfortunately was omitted in error from the published papers, but I understand has been provided to you separately. Most responses received to the consultation were supportive of the aims and priorities of the strategy. The revised strategy, along with a draft delivery plan, was reported to the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 11th of September, and its comments are outlined in paragraph 10 of the report. And again, I think the responses there were broadly positive in relation to what the strategy was trying to do. The recommendations are outlined in paragraph 2 of the report and ask the Cabinet to note the outcome of the consultation and approve the strategy and delivery plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Rich?
Thank you, Chairman. I think you and Sandy have covered all the points I was going to say. This is a well thought out strategy, and I'm happy to move the motion at the bottom of on page 1 of the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Rich. Pam?
Thank you very much. Again, the statements have been made, but I think we're doing the right thing by agreeing that we need to give priority to developing the workforce and improving the quality of specialist care for people with dementia. That's the right thing to do for this cruel disease, and I have no hesitation in seconding the proposal.
Okay, no other speakers. Moved by Rich, seconded by Pam. All in favour? Thank you. 6, review of long-term residential and nursing care fees, pages 111 to 116, and just a couple of appendices, 45 to 46. This just seeks our approval to consult on proposed changes to the way in which the Council agrees prices for residential care and residential nursing care. Are you doing this, John, or Sandy again? Okay, Sandy.
Thank you, Chair. Despite the majority of care home placements being self-funders, the Council is still a significant commissioner of residential care and residential nursing care. The fees paid for care home placements are the biggest single element of the Council's adult social care budget, and any changes in these will have a significant impact on the Council, the quality of care received by residents, and the viability of the care home market generally. The Council's got a duty to set a usual cost for what it pays for care in care homes. And this was last fundamentally reviewed by the Council in 2011 and has been subject to an annual review and uplift since then. But there's now a need to complete a more systematic and detailed review to ensure the price we pay for care is fair and sustainable. There's already been significant engagement with care home providers to understand both the effectiveness of the current arrangements for fees and what options there would be for making changes. Cabinet is being asked to approve a two-stage consultation on draft proposed changes. The key elements of these proposals are outlined in paragraph 19 of the report. The first consultation stage will cover the architecture and processes about how we pay fees, and the second stage will cover the setting of the actual fee rates themselves and the proposed transitional arrangements as how people will move from the current fee arrangements to new fee arrangements. And a further report will come to Cabinet in June 2009 regarding the outcome of this consultation and the proposed way forward. And the recommendations are outlined in paragraph 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I think it meant June 2019, but Rich?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is a very important piece of work. Clearly, the fee structure is crucial to how the care system works, or indeed doesn't work in this country. So it's a responsible job that this authority needs to undertake. As has been said, this is only the consultation stage, stage 1 at the moment, and this will come back to you in June 2019. It's another element of the Care Act 2014. You might think, so all I ever do before I go to bed is read the Care Act. It's common sense. It's what we should be doing, and that's what you hear time and time again with adult social care, is we do the job that we're asked to do. And the Care Act may not provide the money, but it certainly did provide the framework of what we should be doing as a responsible local authority. And I'm happy to move the motion on page 2 of the Green Order paper.
Thanks, Rich. Byron?
Yes, and a huge financial costs involved in this. In paragraph 11 of the main part of the report, it tells you that the estimated gross cost is forecasted to be 86 million in this current year, and then we have 25 million income and net cost of 53. So with that, on that scale, we have to make sure that we get these numbers right in the future, and so it's right to do the review. So I second.
Okay, no other speakers. Moved by Rich, seconded by Byron. All in favour? Thank you. Another one for you, Rich. Capital investment into adult social care accommodation-based support services. This is on pages 117 to 124, appendices 47 to 50. This report provides Cabinet with an overview of the work being undertaken to develop a capital investment plan for adult social care accommodation-based support services, and seeks approval to publish a prior information notice to enable engagement with the market. Now, obviously, you are doing this, John, because Sandy's gone, so over to you.
Thank you. So, both nationally and locally, there's an increasing awareness of the link between care and accommodation. And certainly having the right accommodation has a direct impact on people's well-being and health. Supporting people in their own homes for as long as possible gives people the greatest level of independence, but where people can't remain in their own homes, we have to look at alternative options, community-based options in the form of extra care and supported living, but potentially also in residential and nursing care. It's recognised that there will be an ongoing need for residential nursing care, both for older people and for people of working age who may have complex needs. An investment in residential accommodation will allow the council to control the supply of accommodation, but also the quality of that accommodation. The aims of the projected investment plan are essentially to improve outcomes for service users, by ensuring that the provision that's available for people meets the strategic intent of the local authority and provides people with the most independent care possible. But we also want to shape the market. We want to have greater control in the property development and in the development of accommodation, particularly specialist accommodation and care accommodation. We want to manage demand by reducing the need for intensive care wherever possible, but also contain cost pressures. And if possible, generate income for the authority that will then help to offset the revenue expenditure that we've just heard about in the previous report. So colleagues in the Adult Social Care Department, together with corporate colleagues and colleagues in commercial services, have been working to look at the analysis of the future predicted growth needs over the next 20 years, both demographic growth but also undertaking service modelling across all districts of Leicestershire. And that modelling has estimated that over the next 20 years we may need as much as 750 additional units of supported living and 1,200 units of extra care accommodation. And whilst the nursing care and residential care provision is likely to remain stable, the need for more complex care is certainly evident. So paragraph 17 in the report provides a summary of the opportunities that may be available to the Council to fund the development of what is potentially a £200 million development over 20 years. That development is detailed on pages 47 to 50 of the appendix pack on a district-by-district basis. And we're looking at the potential for both a local authority funding, but also looking at developer funding, joint venture funding, local housing companies, and potentially grants from national bodies. Paragraph 18 then details what the development opportunities may be and the various means that the Council may have available to it in engaging with the market to develop the accommodation that's required. The market engagement will commence with the information notice. That's not a procurement process, that's simply to engage the market, to understand whether the market are ready and willing to engage with the Council. As we've said, this, in terms of financial implications, could be as much as £200 million over a 20-year period. And we estimate that that could return the Council a return on investment of between 4 and 9%. But clearly not all of that investment will be required from the Council itself. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Rich?
Yes, Chairman. Yeah, I'm very, very proud of John Wilson and his team for bringing this paper to us today. This is really forward-thinking. It doesn't provide all the answers. What it does is it explains the problem. The problem is the sheer numbers coming forwards. It's the sort of problem that if you looked at it as a layman, you'd just say, well, how the heck are you ever going to square that circle of what's coming forwards? And this is a possible solution. It's not guaranteed. It's just saying if we look at the particular problems, and one of them might be accommodation, then maybe we can help with the accommodation financial situation, and that'll help us provide two things. One of them will be actually better quality accommodation, and two, to try and meet that magic circle of actually trying to do it within our budget as well. So there's a lot of work. This is just the first step of a lot of work, but potentially this could be one of the tools we use to solve the long-term problems we have going forwards. So I'm really pleased to be moving the motion on page 2 of the Green Order paper.
Thanks, Rich. Byron?
Yeah, I think Rich has put it very well. Potentially £200 million of investment required. We've got to get this right. And it's right that we should also consult properly so that we shape it correctly. We can't afford to get it wrong and have to spend £200 million twice. It's £200 million we won't have, so I'm sure that this will be a good outcome, and I look forward to the further reports. So I'll second the motion.
That's great. No other speakers. Moved by Rich, seconded by Byron. All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 8, Leicestershire and Rutland Carers Strategy 2018 to 21. This is on pages 125 to 132 and appendices 51 to 98. This report advises Cabinet of the outcome of the consultation on the strategy and seeks our approval of the revised strategy for Leicestershire County Council's implementation plan. You're going to speak to this, John?
Thank you. In October 17, the Cabinet approved the draft Carers Strategy for consultation. And consultation then took place in early 2018, followed by a substantial partner engagement and strategy development The strategy was also informed by the National Carers Action Plan, which was published by government in June 2018, setting out how the government wanted to support carers over the next 2 years, ahead of the Green Paper on social care, which is expected sometime between the autumn 2018 and spring 2019. There are currently over 70,000 carers in Leicestershire, 3,500 of whom are young carers, and 800 of those people are under the ages of 15. At the same time as approving the consultation on the full strategy, in 2017, Cabinet resolved that the Department should take immediate and appropriate action to respond to the needs of carers as outlined in the engagement work that was undertaken. And paragraph 27 outlines a number of actions that have been taken over the last 12 months to ensure that carers have the support they need ahead of the strategy implementation. A detailed summary report of the responses to the consultation is attached as Appendix B in the Appendix Pack on pages 81 to 91 of the supplementary pack. The consultation undertook included an online questionnaire, public events and targeted consultations aimed at existing carers. In summary, 230 responses were received to the consultation, of which 69% were from Leicestershire residents. 73% of respondents felt that the strategy reflected carer issues and 82% agreed with the priorities. Subject to Cabinet's approval today, further engagement will be undertaken, particularly with young carers, to understand their expectations of the strategy and the implementation plans to meet their particular needs. And feedback from the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 11th of September added further detail to that priority 8, which is about supporting young carers. And comments from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee are noted at paragraph 34 of the report. So the outcomes of the consultation have influenced the final draft of the strategy and the implementation plan for the County Council. Other partner commissioning organisations will develop their own implementation plans and will take that through their own governance routes. Thank you.
That's great. That's you, Rich.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to present the Carer Strategy to you today. It's after 18 months of work with partners all from different types of organisations. I think the numbers are just staggering, 70,000 people as carers, and the national figures suggesting that 1 in 12 children are acting as carers. I think actually people around this table looking back in their lives will actually think that's actually not quite so surprising as it seems here. But these are people who just get on and do the job, as has happened for many years, and it's important that we're responsible as helping as much as we can. And I thought the figures that John said about the feeling that we were helping the key people, of 80-odd% of people thought this strategy would help them, is a really good indicator. It doesn't provide enough, it won't provide enough money, it won't do enough for anybody, but it shows that we are doing our best to help people in this process. I think it's absolutely paramount that we support the unpaid carers. So I'm very happy to move the the motion on the Green Order Paper, page 2.
Thanks, Rich. Ivan?
Thank you, Leader. I welcome the paper. I've been asking questions about young carers in this county for a number of years, and I certainly agree with the difference in between paragraph 26 and at the end of the paragraph where it says 1 in 12 children have caring responsibilities. I've visited the agency referred to for children's social care and met with young carers, listened to what they have to say. Some of them don't want to be identified. Some of them are afraid that they'll be taken into care if the burden of their caring becomes too obvious. And at the meeting that I went to, and an aspect that I look forward to further reports on, the issue of how schools react to young carers was also seen as very significant, particularly at the secondary stage. So I'm very happy to second this report. I look forward to getting future reports on the aspect of children as and when they come through.
Okay, great. No other speakers. Moved by Rick, seconded by Ivan. All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 9, development of integrated lifestyle services for Leicestershire, outcome of consultation, pages 133 to 140, appendices 99 to 152. This report advises the Cabinet of the outcome of the consultation on the remodelling of lifestyle services and seeks approval for the redesign of lifestyle services to create a more integrated approach and using a digital and telephone-based methods for their delivery to make them more accessible. Mike, are you doing this?
No, I'm going to hand straight over to Liz to summarise the results of the
Okay,
consultation.
well,
and the proposed
welcome,
model.
Liz. I don't think you've been before, have you?
Just once.
Ah,
Thank you
well,
much.
welcome anyway. Over to you, Liz.
Okay, thank you. So as set out in paragraph 25 of the paper, we consulted the public and stakeholders about the improvements to integration of lifestyle services in Leicestershire and remodelling the Tier 1 and 2 weight management services, moving to a more digitally and telephone-based delivery alongside face-to-face methods that we currently support. The consultation ran for 7 weeks in June through to August, and in paragraph 26 there's more detail there in terms of who responded to that consultation. Paragraph 27 summarises the consultation, but briefly there was overall support for improving the integration of lifestyle services and for increasing opportunities for self-help through different types of media. The Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee suggested that we look at how mobile phone apps could be integrated into the model, and so we've looked at how this can be done. There was some apprehension that web and telephone-based support would exclude some people. We've taken this on board and will be retaining some targeted face-to-face and group-based support for weight management. There was also some confusion that perhaps that we will be losing specialist input into the service from dietitians and nutritionists. And in fact, this isn't the case. We will be ensuring that there is that specialist support into the design and the delivery of the service. So taking the consultation responses into account, paragraph 30 sets out in more detail the model of integrated lifestyle services and remodelled weight management in the future. So the proposals are that we would have a triage service that would be the umbrella service, bringing the suite of lifestyle services together in a more integrated way and helping individuals plan behaviour change individual to them in a coordinated fashion. For the weight management delivery, a significant amount of work to remodel that has been undertaken, particularly around Tier 1 and Tier 2 services, which the Council is responsible for. We'd like to increase the number of people that can be supported by improving the web-based information, advice and self-help resources. This will provide the majority of support to people, but also introducing a telephone-based support for weight management, much like the Quit Ready service that we have currently, and First Contact Plus. And then we would also provide some one-to-one support, either by the telephone or then in groups, group-based support for those who are not able to access online or telephone-based support. So these are Tier 1 and 2 services which the Council is responsible for. People who need more specialist services who would need to be referred to CCG Commission Tier 3 and Tier 4 services. So in delivering the weight management services in this way, it brings it in line with our Stop Smoking service and First Contact Plus delivery methods, and also how the public want to access services nowadays. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Pam?
Thank you, Leader. I think this is a very good step forward. Integration of lifestyle services means that we can better invest in prevention to reduce health inequalities, and the coordination of these services means that people are offered a more balanced approach, enabling them to improve their health and well-being. It is cost effective. Rather than commissioning services in isolation, we're doing it in a stream so that people may need to access more than one service, and that can be picked up at the initial consultation. There are 4 tiers to weight management services. Tier 1 and Tier 2 we commission. Tier 3 and Tier 4 are what the CCGs have to commission, and we need to be having ongoing conversations with the CCGs for them to commission T3 and T4 services for people who require them. That's not everybody, but it is a number of people. I've got some anecdotal information because some of these people that we've referred for weight management, particularly with exercise, because we commission it, I've visited these services. And not only are they getting the exercise, they're also developing friendships. And so that's removing isolation from some people because they've got other people that they can talk to, friends that they can go out for a coffee with or meet after, and it's really good to see them. And, you know, things like when a lady tells me that 2 years ago she walked with 2 sticks, now she walks without any, is just proof that what we're doing is the right thing to do. So I have no hesitation but to propose this service.
Yep, thanks Pam, seems good to me. Louise?
Yeah, I'm happy to support this recommendation. Prevention is key to managing the extra care demand later. Integration offers a much more holistic approach for the residents concerned, as they often have more than one specific issue to deal with. And so, yes, happy to support.
Good. Well, no other speakers. Moved by Pam, seconded by Louise. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Liz. And you, Mike. 10, Draft Passenger Transport Policy and Strategy, pages 141 to 160, and appendices, well, there's a lot of these, 153 to 350. So this report advises on the outcome of the consultation on the passenger transport policy and strategy and seeks our approval to adopt it as the basis for future management of passenger transport services, replacing the existing revised policy on supported bus network. For note, the Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered this on October the 11th, and a copy of the draft minute is attached to the order paper marked 10. You're going to speak to this, Anne, and then I'll be calling Blake. So over to you, Anne.
Thank you. This report sets out the results of a 12-week consultation we held earlier in the year, seeking views on our draft policy and strategy for passenger transport, and also on the proposed criteria under which we would assess future subsidised transport provision in the county. The consultation comprised 5 events, a briefing for the parish councils, as well as the online and paper surveys. We also included 5 DRT demonstration projects which were actually in operation during some of the consultation period. We had 928 responses to the formal survey and 285 non-survey responses. The analysis to those are set out in Appendix H, I and J to the report, and of 88% of the respondents were actually subsidised bus users. Summary of responses are set out in paragraph 28 to 41. Key highlights are while the majority supported the priority groups, the types of journey and the operating times proposed as part of the assessment criteria, this contrasts with 77% saying implementation would make it harder for them to access essential services. On the demand responsive transport option, while 35% were dissatisfied with current alternative public transport services, 83% had actually never used it, therefore you can assume had a relatively low knowledge base of it. 52% went on to disagree that such services could provide an alternative where subsidised bus service offer poor value for money. And 87% said DRT would make it harder for them to access essential services. Just one particular bit to note in the consultation, it did actually spark an awful lot of responses about specific subsidised services. But just to emphasise, this consultation wasn't about specific services, it's about the policy and strategy. What we will do with any such petitions that we received would be to take them into account when we're reviewing the existing subsidised services, assuming this policy and strategy is actually approved today. I just wanted to highlight the equalities and human rights aspect of this. Obviously, we recognise there could be a disproportionate impact on older people, people with disabilities, those in isolated communities or employment-deprived areas. We did an awful lot of work to make sure the assessment has been designed to weight those particular factors more heavily, meaning they're more likely to see support of subsidised services in future. We also engaged the Leicestershire Equalities Challenge Group and our own departmental equalities group in helping us develop up the EHRIA. We'll continue to work with the Leicestershire Equalities Challenge Group throughout the implementation phase. And you'll see as Appendix N to the report, they have actually included a statement and they acknowledged that the equalities considerations were embedded throughout our approach to this development of the policy and strategy. Overall, the consultation highlighted that people are largely happy with the current bus provision, and while supporting our suggested assessment criteria, the majority wanted to retain subsidised bus services regardless of value for money, as they felt the alternatives would make it harder for them to access those key services. However, the high percentage that have never used DRT shows that there's potentially a lack of understanding of those alternatives and also uncertainty in using them. Therefore, in recognition of this, the report recommends we put resource to the tune of £145,000 into being able to assist communities in working up their own solutions and making that transition to DRT if that was applicable to their community, to build that greater understanding and confidence of the alternative. While it's clear people like the convenience of buses, regardless of how well used, unfortunately we're all aware of our funding position that gives us significant challenges in this day and age, and the existing application of how we apply our subsidised buses is not sustainable or effective use of limited public funding. Therefore, the report recommends to approve the policy and strategy as set out in Appendix A and B to the document. Environment and Transport Scrutiny considered this report earlier this week, and their comments are in the order papers at item 10 for your information. If approved, the next steps will be to review the existing subsidised services against this amended process with implementation from June next year. All existing subsidised services have been extended to June next year, so will run as is. The revised recommendations are in the green order paper.
Thank you, Anne. Blake.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, can I thank Anne and the department for the work they've employed in carrying out the consultation, which has been very thorough. I think we also have to thank the media for the role they've played in promoting the consultation and the dilemma the County Council faces in continuing to fund at our current level subsidised passenger transport. And whilst an can I thank the 928 respondents to the consultation for all of their comments and the 92 people that turned up to the consultation events. All their comments have been taken on board, and I think the report does a pretty good job at accommodating those comments and responding to them as best we can. I think it might help just to remind Cabinet as to why we're here and the dilemma we face. There's been a recent campaign for better transport called Buses in Crisis, which was conducted throughout 2017-18. And that campaign told the campaign that there's been a reduction of £20.2 million worth of supported bus service funding throughout 2017 and 18. And since 2010-2011, there's been a 46% net reduction for supported bus services across England. 56 out of the 88 authorities that took part in that survey as part of that campaign also reported that they do not contribute anything towards subsidised bus services, or they've reduced their support in terms of financial support towards those services. So it's with that in mind that I'm pleased, as the lead member for the department, to be able to still bring a proposal that looks to spend between £1.9 and £2 million a year on supporting bus services within Leicestershire. The other thing, I think it's very important to remember that 94% of all bus services in Leicestershire are currently operated on a commercial basis. So we're looking at the remaining 6% of services that we subsidise in some form or another. Now, we recognise that change is challenging, and we recognise people's concerns about the demand-responsive services that we are proposing or other community services, because people simply aren't used to them, which is why the director of the department just mentioned that as part of the response to the consultation, we recognise that we need to put resource aside to better promote demand responsive services and also try and promote and educate communities as to how they can access them and how they actually work. Members might be keen to learn that we currently have about 30 demand responsive services across Leicestershire. Most of them work very, very well, and I've taken an interest in one of the particular routes where a member of the community or members of a community will phone up a particular number, and depending on demand for that services, a demand responsive service will be programmed in throughout the week. So whilst we accept there might be a degree of flexibility lost, it certainly is better value for the taxpayer in terms of providing a service. So whilst we're looking at reducing our current budget from 2.3 million to 1.9 million, I truly believe that by using our money more efficiently and effectively, we can continue to offer transportation services for the people of Leicestershire, but within a resource envelope that we can actually afford. And that, for me, must be a positive thing. The policy has been through a thorough consultation. We've taken note of the responses to that consultation. The fact remains that there is growing demand for passenger transportation services because as the commercial sector cease their services, people do look towards us to be able to fill that gap, and we have done so far. But the proposal is to continue all services to June 2019, as the Director has just mentioned, after which I refer Cabinet members to page 157 of our Cabinet report, paragraph 59, which sets out how we intend to roll out the policy if it's adopted today. I just want to draw particular attention to, we recognise that there is concern about the quality of bus services across Leicestershire. And to that extent, where we do subsidise services, it's our intention to bring a performance report to scrutiny each year so we can look at the performance of a particular subsidised services where members can be invited to comment on those services and therefore draw into the public domain issues of quality of service provision. And that will be something that we've taken on board from the consultation and we intend to implement. And you can see that's under paragraph 59 of our report. So, Leader, based on what I've just said, I will move the item on the green order paper under 10 from A to G, and I'll seek a seconder to that motion. Thank you, Leader.
Sure. Well, I've got Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to second that. Blake's given a very comprehensive introduction, so I won't repeat all those points. But I will emphasise just one thing he said towards the end of his remarks, and that is the need to ensure quality for passengers from the services that we, or the taxpayer, frankly, are subsidising. So I really welcome the proposal for this scrutiny review, this quality review. That's a really good step forward. The whole paper, I think, pulls together something which is really overnight, over many nights, frankly, in a comprehensive way, and I'm very pleased to second it, Chairman.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ivan.
Thank you, Chair. I have the number 7 bus, which is identified in the report, running north to south through the division that I represent. Officers from Environment and Transport have worked very hard to establish a community bus partnership. But I was present at Witherley Parish Council meeting last year when the chairman had to report he was now the last remaining individual in that area on the bus partnership. And because I've been around for a long time, I can also recall when one of my villagers had the threat of a bus being withdrawn, reacted very adversely to it. I was actually at the meeting. And then when demand responsive transport came in, accepted it, quite frankly, with open arms. And when the opportunity arose to reinstate the bus to that particular village, there was then an equally strong reaction against losing demand responsive transport to a timetabled service. I do, however, accept the fact that poorer people in the countryside who may not have immediate family around them do rely on the buses, but you have to balance that out against our statutory duties, and at the end of the day, I'm afraid that delivering what we are statutorily required to do has to take priority over that which is desirable to do.
Pam?
Thank you. I think the strategy is good, the report is excellent, and I can't disagree with any of it. My concern is some of the companies that do the subsidised routes don't perform well, and I'm pleased that we're going to do a quality check on that because they should be done. I think from people who've never used the demand response service, we need to spend some time, as the director said we're going to do, talking to people about it, because their concern is that they might have something that crops up as an emergency and they can't get any service, and they've not got family living locally. And they've got concerns about, you know, will I be able to take my walker on it? Will my wheelchair go on it? What about the pushchairs? You know, all those sorts of questions that I frankly can't answer, other than say I assume all of that will be taken into account, and I'm sure it will. My big concern is similar to Ives's, with people who are living in really rural areas that have got no family, that we're not increasing their loneliness and their isolation, because that's something I think we do need to bear in mind when we're looking at what we're going to do with the services.
Thank you. Just one quick comment for me, and it's obviously Blake said 94% aren't subsidised, but what has come across to me and been raised in cabinet briefing is where they are subsidised, they must perform. So we can't mention any particular bus companies in particular because it wouldn't be appropriate, but if they don't perform, we should withdraw the subsidy or at least do something else with it. So I'm glad that Blake is going to look at it, because subsidy with bad performance isn't acceptable. Okay, so moved by Blake, seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you. Richard's leaving the room, so I'll wait for Richard, although I could read what we're doing. HS2 Phase 2B, pages 161 to 176, appendices 351 to 354. This paper advises the Cabinet of the current position with regard to HS2 route through Leicestershire and the resource implications for the Council. The report seeks our approval for the approach to mitigation measures and the allocation of significant additional resources for this. As we're expecting further consultation and so on from HS2 Limited once it has published its mitigation proposals. This report also seeks agreement for the Director of Environment and Transport to respond on behalf of the Council. This would follow consultation with Blake as the lead member and, as raised by Overview and Scrutiny Committee, engagement with the relevant local member. Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny considered this on October the 11th. A copy of the draft minute is attached to the order paper marked 11A. And also we've received comments from Councillor Sheehan, who represents Measham, so is affected, and from Max Hunt, who represents the middle of Loughborough, so isn't affected, which are attached to the order paper. So I'll now hand over to you, Anne, to present the report.
Thank you, Leader. Work on HS2 is progressing, and actually just last week they have issued their draft environmental statement, which begins the process of setting out their mitigation, although there is, to be fair to say, a lot of detail not in there yet at this stage in the process. That consultation closes on 21st of December, and to best understand how we approach this and the wider engagement with HS2, bearing in mind this will be an 8 to 10 year project affecting the county, we have talked to both Warwickshire and Buckinghamshire County Councils, who've both been involved in earlier phases of high-speed rail. And it's fair to say that has been really valuable use of our time. A summary of those discussions is included as Appendix A. Overall, what we took from that is both local authorities have put significant resource into this work and for some of them, such as Warwickshire, the last 7 years, and have seen benefits in terms of enhanced mitigation for their communities impacted by the high-speed rail. A key point I would want to just emphasise for Cabinet that HS2 is not just a transport project. It will have more than highway impacts. It will affect, right across the board in terms of LCC services and for our communities. For instance, education, public health, social services, etc. will be affected at some point through the development and delivery of this project. In developing our position, we are working closely with the East Midlands councils who have recently revised their governance process around HS2, and that's set out for you on page 167 of your papers. And that involves both member and officer boards to steer the East Midlands response to HS2. The report proposes that we work collaboratively with East Midlands councils on our common objectives, but also we work more locally with relevant parties such as North West Leicestershire District Council, the parish councils, on more specific Leicestershire implications and issues. In terms of our mitigation approach, there's 4 key headlines that have been identified for you in paragraph 36: to limit and address construction impacts, to minimise noise, visual impacts and maximise design quality. Bear in mind we've got sizable viaducts, etc., going through SSSIs. Maximise our overall level of mitigation for the county and safeguard delivery of projects that could be impacted, such as regeneration or planned highway improvement projects. To achieve this, we outline 3 approaches, do minimum to proactive, and the report, as you will see, is recommending a proactive approach, and that is solely based on the learning from the other authorities and the benefits they then achieve from taking that approach. Therefore, the report is seeking a resource of 400,000 to fund a small team and enable the relevant works to be taken forward. As the leaders already mentioned, scrutiny considered this report and their comments are item 11A, and the recommendations are as on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Anne. I've got Blake.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, can I thank Christine Radford that's been putting in a shift when we look at HS2 on behalf of the County Council. As you can see from the report, there are many meetings outside of this organisation that need servicing, and Christine's been going to those meetings and speaking on behalf and on my behalf and the department's behalf about HS2 issues that impact upon us. Can I also note the comments made via scrutiny, but in particular I think Max Hunt sent his own comments in. I think he went out of his way at scrutiny to mention that he wasn't speaking on behalf of the Labour group but on behalf of himself. I'm a little bit bemused because on one hand he seems to be suggesting that we shouldn't be investing this money, but on the other hand he's asking Cabinet to engage rather better about this issue. Well, I think the proposal and the policy before you puts very firmly out there where we stand. We want to treat this issue really, really seriously. It is a serious issue. Just to clear one thing up, at that particular meeting, it's a case of math before mind, I think. I did suggest that it was an overall amount of 400,000. I did apologise for that. It was an erroneous comment, and it is 400,000 every single year. So if we can just make sure that's on the record now. Notwithstanding, I'm fully in support of this proposal. It is a lot of money. We accept that, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to try and get the best for Leicestershire out of this current situation. We started off a few years ago being opposed to HS2. We said we'd take all the pain and none of the gain, excuse the pun. But actually, let's work on the assumption it's going to be delivered, and we need to play a vital role of engagement right now to make sure that Leicestershire is protected in terms of the environmental impacts, but also we maximise the upshot to this particular project. So with that in mind, Leader, I have no hesitation in supporting the motion on the Green Order paper, and once again I'll seek a seconder. Thank you.
Sure, well I'm seconding it because this is of major strategic importance to the County Council, and I thoroughly support the fact that we're going to put some money into liaising with HS2, because as you said, Anne, it's not just the railway coming through here, it's the construction of the railway. The sheer numbers of people that are going to be based in North West Leicestershire while they construct it is of major concern. You know, the impact on schools, because they'll probably bring children because they're here for a long time, the impact on hospitals, doctors, surgeries, nurses, and then of course a lot of them are going to actually have to live here. So they'll either build big caravan parks or temporary accommodation somewhere, but we need to take it very, very seriously indeed and make sure that as it comes through we do get the benefits from mitigation that are out there. Now if you think it's going to cost 100 billion from one end to the other, our bit's probably going to cost 50 billion, so we need to invest time, money and resources into speaking with them and attending. And I do also thank Christine, who's been doing this as an extra part of her job in supporting Blake, who already has a huge portfolio. But there's that many HS2 things springing up, mitigation boards, this, that and the other board, that I will be giving some serious consideration between now and Christmas about whether or not we need a dedicated member to go and battle with this blooming lot to make sure that Leicestershire and in particular North West benefits from what is coming through here. So I'm very happy to second the motion and also place on record my thanks to Christine Radford for the work she's done at the moment, in addition to her normal day job in supporting Blake. Anybody else want to speak? Oh, Byron, over to you.
Yeah, let's not forget this is going to cost us £400,000 a year. Money which we could ill afford because we need to spend it on other things. And yet if we don't, we run the risk of major disruption to the county because we haven't actually reacted properly to what this Future Development Corporation that's going to build this are going to do. And the disruption, whatever happens, is going to be very significant. So, with some regret, I'll support the £400,000 having to be spent every year. And I wish we didn't have to spend it, and I wish the government would reimburse us. But I don't think there's much prospect of that.
No, I agree with you, but if we don't get some skin in the game, we won't get anything from them. And being as it's such a huge thing, we've got to get in there and be speaking to them. So, moved by Blake, seconded... Oh, do you want to speak, Ivan? Over to you, Ivan.
Thank you, Leader. As people know, I've always queried the worth of HS2 and still do to this day. But when you read this paper, this is a no-brainer. If we have to make this investment in order to make this mitigation take place. We represent residents in Leicestershire. It's not just a railway. It's going to be the effect on existing services, particularly the environment for people who are going to be living close to the track. So I will be voting to support the recommendation.
Thanks for that, Ivan. I think everybody agrees with Byron that it is something which we didn't particularly want to have to do, but I think it's something essential that we do to engage and make sure we do benefit. So, moved by Blake, seconded by me. All in favour? Great, thank you. Do you want to fetch Richard back in? So, while Richard's coming in, the next one, agenda item 12, is a TRO at Churchill Close, Oadby. No waiting at any time restrictions. This is on 177 to 182 and appendices 355 to 360. That's exactly what it is. So over to you, Anne.
Thank you. We received a request from the Emergency Services in Oadby and Wigston Borough Council to deal with parking issues in Churchill Close in Oadby as a result of an emergency vehicle not being able to access due to parked cars. We considered and proposed a no waiting at any time traffic regulation order, i.e. double yellow lines, on one side of Churchill Close as the plan in Appendix A to your report. The local members, Mr Cowfin and Mr Gamble, do not support this proposal, hence coming to Cabinet for a decision. We undertook consultation earlier in the year and both local members and 11 local residents did not support as they felt it would make parking more difficult and instead requested a residence parking scheme. It's not the Highway Authority's duty to provide parking for residents. However, we did consider a residence parking scheme and established that it doesn't meet the essential criteria, i.e. we weren't even able to offer one parking space for each household. Therefore, there'd be little chance of the majority of residents being able to find a space within a residence parking scheme, therefore not achieving its objectives and leading often to dissatisfaction with the scheme. The report mentions that there are parking garages owned by Oadby and Wigston Borough Council that were out of use and instead being used for storage by the Borough Council. I can correct the numbers and apologies for the error. The report states there was 35 garages. In actual fact, there was 27. And since the time of writing, Oadby and Wigston Borough Council have clarified that they have brought these garages back into use and around half are currently leased for parking. The report seeks approval to implement the TRO on the basis of highway safety to facilitate safe passage and enable emergency vehicle access. The recommendations are in the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Anne. Blake?
Naturally, I support the recommendation on the Green Order paper, Leader. Just to say that Mr Kaufman did speak to me a couple of weeks ago about this particular scheme, and when I looked into it, and I think Anne's just covered all of the material information, you know, this is a safety issue at the end of the day. Where there was a request for residents' parking permits, it wouldn't conform to our current policies to implement a permit scheme in any case. And I think on safety reasons, we have to accept and support the recommendation on the Green Order paper. I move.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I will second that.
Okay, no other speakers. All in favour, please show. Thank you, Anne. Review of Leicestershire County Council's Planning Obligations Policy, a consultation draft, pages 133 to 188. appendices pages 361 to 428. This paper advises the Cabinet on progress on the review of County Council's planning obligation policy and seeks approval to commence a public consultation on the revised draft policy. And being as Lonnick's here, we might as well embarrass him. Lonnick's been with us for 20 odd years and he's now moving on to pastures new. I won't try and pronounce your surname at this late stage in your career, Lonnick, as I've got it wrong for 20 years, but thanks for your service, and I know members like you, and certainly good luck where you're going, because I know where you're going. I'm not going to mention it, 'cause it's slightly contentious, but we'll hand over you to introduce it then, Lonnick, your last report.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much for those kind words. Yes, this is a review of the planning obligations policy, and you'll see that the current policy was adopted in 2014, and this has really been updated because of the changes in the planning system, such as the NPPF, and also to reflect some of the experience that we've learned over the past few years in operating the system. The draft policy is set out at page 361 in the appendices pack, and the key changes are set out for you on page 186 of the report, and namely they are updated data on pupil yield ratios for houses. We're going to better target how we deal with sustainable transport usage. We're going to have a better and more integrated approach on waste management infrastructure, and in particular and critically for the first time we're going to set out some metrics about how we can gauge what we might need for contributions to social care infrastructure. And I think you've heard reports earlier today about that as well. As you quite rightly said, Chairman, the consultation proposed between now and Christmas, and scrutiny will be in that period as well. And then after that, they'll come back with the result of that consultation with a view to get the new policy adopted as soon as possible thereafter. Thank you.
Thanks, Lonnick. I'm moving this motion on the Green Order paper. And then I've got Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll second that. And if I may, add my thanks to Lonnick for his help over the years. Thank you very much.
Ivan, did you want to say anything on this? I'd got you type of tentatively written down.
Well, Leader, I can't comment on your ability to read my mind. What I would say is that I've also worked very closely with Lonnick over the years, particularly in the area of getting funding for schools. And obviously that will come through on the next paper, developer contributions towards county council services. Like everybody else, I wish you all the best for the future. It's always good for a member to have confidence in an officer and to get really straightforward responses. I thank you for that.
Great. Moved by me, seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you. Next one, developer contributions towards County Council Services 189 to 194. This provides an update on developer contributions received and not received to meet demands placed on services created by development across the county. So this is actually your swan song, Lonnick, so we want you to really, really enjoy it.
I could say nothing to add to the report, Chairman, but just very briefly, yeah, this is your regular update on what's happening on Section 106 agreement over the past 6 months. It's a fairly straightforward report, fairly short. You'll see that we've signed up to about £27.5 million worth of funds in agreements that we've signed, and we've received over £5 million from agreements in the last 6 months. From the appeal decisions that we've had, all the inspectors, bar on one occasion, have supported the way we've approached Section 106s. But for other areas, there are 4 occasions when those requests have not been supported, either because there have been viability issues or they haven't met the tests according to the local planning authority. So the report is there for you to note, Chair. Thank you.
Good, and I'm moving it, and I'm calling Ivan.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm seconding it on the motion on the Green Order paper. I think Lonnick and his team have done really well in terms of education, but it vexes me that there's an issue outside Lonnick's control, outside my control, in the Colville area of a school with overcapacity that prevents us from ever getting any 106 money towards doing work on the existing schools. And maybe at some point in the future the government will act, because it will have to come from government to take that particular issue on board and deal with it. But I'd just like once again to thank him for all the help he's given Children and Family Services over the years.
Thank you. Byron?
Yes, if I could say something in this, I've worked with Lonick as well. His name is Vista Vojtolevich. I think that's the right pronunciation, isn't it?
A bit late to learn it now.
Well, I was his lead member for a little while, and that was an interesting time, and Lonick was a superb officer to support me, so I thank him for that. And I gather he's going to work for the government. Well, I rather hope that he will be, in the power that he will have in this new role, that he will think about us and the things that he might do to us with some of the advice he may give them. But I'm sure he will. I just one comment on this paper. I'd realised that there is one particular scheme there, and I was one of the people involved at the Borough Council who actually decided not to make that contribution, or to have the developers make that contribution, because the scheme wouldn't have got off the ground had we done so. So we didn't lose anything, because it would never have happened if we'd have insisted upon it. But it was right to ask for it, so I don't quarrel with the county council's position. Nothing more to add to that. I'll vote for the motion, of course.
Good. Blake?
Yeah, it appears Lonick's had just as many lead members as the government's had housing ministers, because I was his lead member once as well for planning, and I'd like to thank you for your support and guidance whilst I held that position, and obviously since then. Just on the report, Leader, I've noticed as a pattern, civic amenity sites. We spend about £25 to £30 million a year dealing with Leicestershire's waste. Civic amenity sites are really important, and I don't see it as something that can just be tossed aside through a negotiation. So I'm taking note of that, and I'll go back to the department and speak to Joe as to how we can further explore getting the correct amounts, because the amounts actually look very, very light considering the role that those particular sites play. Thank you.
Another lead member, Rich?
Pleased. I had 4 years with Lonick before you. And it was never, apart from the steps, which I always insisted on walking to the very top, always seemed to be one more floor than I ever thought it was. It was always a pleasure to get there, and he made the briefings fun, interesting, and often complex. And it has been a real pleasure to work with you, and that was it. Thank you, Jim.
Hope you've not had as many wives as you've had lead members, Lonick. Yeah. Well, anyway, Lonick, good luck with where you're going. You're certainly going out at the top, because you're my lead member now. I'm your lead member now. So it's been moved by me and seconded by somebody else. I can't remember now. Who?
It was Ivan.
By Ivan. All in favour? Thank you. You staying for the next one then, Lonick? Okay. So the next one is to response to government consultation on permitted development for shale gas exploration and inclusion of shale gas production projects in the National Significant Infrastructure Project regime. Pages 195 to 204, appendices 429 to 434. It seeks the County Council's approval to the two consultation documents, the response to two consultation documents issued by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy relating to shale gas exploration and production. So you're going to do this, John? Okay.
Yes, Chairman, thanks. There's two government consultations which are proposing changes to how shale gas development gains development approval. Firstly, it has been proposed that exploration for shale gas, which does not involve hydraulic fracturing, which is commonly known as fracking, will be permitted without the need to make a planning application. It's proposed that the permitted development right would only apply to exploration for shale gas, not the later stages of assessing and production of gas. The right would also not apply to using fracking to explore for gas. The government is seeking views on the principle of exploration being permitted development and in what circumstances it will be appropriate, bearing in mind the need to maintain control over the environmental impacts of such development. The proposed response is at Appendix A to the report, and your officer's view is that it is not appropriate for exploration for shale gas to be permitted development. The reason for taking this view is because of its potential for having significant environmental impacts, which should be assessed through a full planning application. Making shale gas exploration permitted development would appear to make it a special case, inconsistent with the intended purpose of permitted development rights, which is to permit minor, low impact and uncontentious development. As a consequence, it would not help reassure public concerns about shale gas development, and the right for the public to make comments on a planning application would be lost. Furthermore, government proposals to put in complicated safeguards, restrictions and definitions as to how the right would apply would likely defeat any intention to speed up the permitting process, whilst also resulting in confusion and perhaps inconsistency in how it is applied. Moving to the second consultation, which is on the proposal to place major shale gas production in the National Infrastructure Planning regime. Firstly, to explain, the National Infrastructure Planning process is administered by the Planning Inspectorate, and decisions are taken by the relevant Secretary of State rather than the local planning authority. In Leicestershire, we have experience of this with the East Midlands Gateway Strategic Rail Freight Interchange, which is currently being built near East Midlands Airport. The National Infrastructure Planning process allows the County and District Council to present their views through a local impact report. Local communities are required to be consulted and have the opportunity to be involved in the examination of such development proposals in front of inspectors who make a recommendation to the Secretary of State on whether a development consent should be granted. Officers believe that there could be justification for putting applications for shale gas production sites of sufficient scale and importance into the nationally significant infrastructure planning regime. However, at this stage, we've no certainty as to whether shale gas production can make a significant contribution to national energy requirements, and the little knowledge of what form such infrastructure might take. It seems premature to try to define thresholds which would ensure that only development of a truly national significance is taken out of local decision making. So the full proposed response is provided at Appendix B. Thank you, Chair.
Sure, happy to move the motion. I've had hundreds and hundreds of emails on this issue, so I'll move it. Louise?
I'm happy to second, and I agree with all the officers said today.
Great. No other speakers. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dominic. 16. Yes, I'm on 16. Social Care Value Policy Statement. Pages 205 to 208, appendices 435 to 438. This is the last report on the public part of the agenda. Seeks Cabinet approval for the adoption of the County Council's Social Value Policy Statement. It's vital that the Council considers the wider social, economic and environmental benefits for communities in Leicestershire when awarding contracts for services. Tom's going to explain to us about it, and then I'm going to call Louise. Tom.
Thank you, Leader. The Council is under a statutory requirement to consider wider social, economic and environmental benefits when awarding contracts for services above a certain threshold. The Council has complied with this requirement and has secured for local communities a range of benefits, including those set out in paragraph 15 of the report. This new social value policy statement proposes to go beyond this statutory requirement and increase the value of benefits received. Key features of the policy statement include: it will seek to secure social value which supports the Council's priority outcomes as set out in the strategic plan and also the objectives of the Council's community strategy. It will apply the policy to all contracts worth £50,000 or more, and that's a much lower threshold than the £180,000 required by statute. It sets out how the Council will seek to secure social value through the commissioning process, at the procurement stage and through the management of contracts. and a clear definition of social value is provided, and that's shown in bold on page 435 of the appendix pack. It's estimated that social value typically equivalent to 10 to 20% of the contract value can be added by taking this approach. So in brief, the policy will help the Council to achieve more of its strategic aims with the same money, and that's clearly of great benefit given the financial constraints the Council faces. So the Cabinet has recommended to approve the statement and authorise the Chief Executive in consultation with the Director of Corporate Resources to review and update it annually.
Louise.
I'm happy to move this. Glad it follows the strategic plan. We need to get the most value out for our money. We also going far more above our statutory duties, which is good. I also think that with the database being produced, we do need to ensure that we take into account those things that aren't measured just by time and money, which are mental and physical well-being and emotional well-being too. Happy to move.
Thank you, Louise. Pam?
Thank you. I think this is a very good paper and really interesting, and I think it's important that we do go along the route of social value because it adds so much more to the services that we provide, and I'm very happy to second this.
Okay, no other speakers. Moved by Louise, seconded by Pam. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Next one, items referred from overview and scrutiny. There are none. 18, urgent items. There are none. 19, exclusions of the press and public. I now move that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 10 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that in all circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. I move. Second by Brian. Second. All in favour? Thank you. I'm going to pause so he switches.